Oh boy. Uh, I was meaning to start this earlier. Just sort of get home, do the dishes, and then maybe stream. Um, that turned out to not be the thing that I did. I just crashed into bed. I was more sleepy than I thought I was, I think. Um, but I didn't want to skip stream 2 days in a row. So I'm here now. Oh, did you see? Did any of you see? The VOD may still be available, but something funny happened last time where I tried to stream and then my stream crashed. Right, which I expected because Unity is a heavy ass program, right? So I was definitely expecting that to happen. What I did not expect to happen is, okay, so the thing that I was going to do on stream with Unity, right, was I was going to make builds of every single game that I had to update them to the latest Unity version. And I was going to do that, but the thing that happens is that OBS crashed as soon as I started up Unity, because Unity is a very heavy program and OBS and streaming is a very heavy process, so that's expected. What I did not expect though is that after that I decided, well, I still have to do these updates, so I'll just do them off stream then. And then I spent the next 4.5 hours trying to make a single web build. Now here's the thing, web builds in Unity are the most difficult type, right? They are like the ones that take the most resources. So your system will hang and you'll have to wait for it, or not necessarily hang, but be really slow because it's gonna take up all of your RAM. That's just normal, right? What happened is that it kept crashing. It kept like crashing my entire PC, like freezing everything. I couldn't even move my mouse, not even very slowly. Just completely unresponsive system. And now here's the thing, I really don't want to just turn off my computer when it gets like that, right? That's a really bad idea because you don't know what it's trying to do, and if you cut it off at a really essential point, you may just fuck something up, right? So it's less risky to just let it finish, and if like 2 hours have passed and it's still on it, okay, maybe then you kill it, right? So the thing is, it would go like 10 or 15 minutes would go by and the build would fail, right? With like a really weird error message, like error message that just was insurmountable, just completely impossible to parse for me. And so I, obviously I do what I do. You start troubleshooting, you go to Google, you ask them what that might be, you find people online in forums who have had similar issues. Some of them managed to fix it by doing this, some of them managed to fix it by doing that, so you try again, but it wasn't working. Now usually when you're troubleshooting shit, it's a very active process, but the problem is that when every time it hangs your computer, and then it takes like 10 to 20 minutes to actually do anything, to actually become responsive again, just to tell you that it failed. Yeah, the process kind of gets long, right? So it took like 4 hours or something like that. It was something crazy, and then here's the thing: it kept failing, and by then it was some cost fallacy because like it was 2 hours have gone by, and I'm really not going to have. I'm gonna have wasted 2 hours without even managing like how to do this. Do you want to know what the issue was? And it might also be the issue behind the crashes, right? That I've been having on stream. Is running out of VRAM. Like, okay, if you don't know much about computers, let me give you the rundown, right? Storage is the space that your computer has to save shit for later. But the space that your computer has to work on shit right now is a different kind of space, and that is called RAM. It's short for random access memory, right? And the analogy that I have is that it's like your desk, right? You may have tons of shelf space, But when you need to work on something, you're not going to work on it on the shelves. You're going to need to take it out of the shelf and put it on the desk, right? And only there you can work on it. So having more desk space means that in theory you can work on more stuff at the same time, right? If you run out of desk space, then you can't work on the shit that you just can't, right? Something has to come out for you to be able to work on it, right? Now the issue is if you run out of RAM, your computer just doesn't know how to continue the processes that it's doing, right? And so it'll just kind of pause until it manages to liberate something, to free some space on the RAM on your desk. And the way that it does that is by taking some of the shit at the desk and just putting it back in storage. So essentially closing processes, killing programs, just stopping shit until enough space frees up for the thing that you're asking it to do, right? This is a very simplified explanation. But that's a process that can take a while, especially because you don't have any RAM left to do the process of killing processes, right? So what do you do as a operating system designer? Well, you decide that, well, actually, we might use some storage space as RAM, right? We might take some empty bit. We're going to designate some empty bit of your hard drive, because that's the thing. RAM. The reason RAM is so good at this is because RAM is. Hold on. Right. What was I talking about? Oh man, I lost the thread. Oh yeah, when you run out, right, VRAM, right, that's what I was on. So yeah, you have a certain amount of working space, right? And so when you run out of RAM, your computer starts using storage space as RAM. But the thing about RAM that's so good for that task is that it's very quick, right? It's super quick. And storage space isn't reading and writing to storage is not as quick as from RAM, right? So what happens is that your computer slows way the fuck down, right? And then when it runs out of VRAM, when it runs out of the designated amount of space that you're allowed to use as virtual RAM, then it just dies again, right? But it gives you a buffer, right? Where if your computer starts slowing down, you as the user sort of get the clue that you should maybe close some shit down, right? Before the process killer has to come along and do it for you, right? And then it might close something that you don't want it to close. So yeah, for I have 8 gigs of RAM on this PC. It's a very small, it's a laptop, right? I have 8 gigs of RAM. But I had only 2 gigs of VRAM, which is small. It's a very small amount, so it was getting filled up really quickly, right? It's the swap memory on my system. It's what it's called. And the thing is, apparently, the way that my system works, and I don't know how standard this is. It may be completely standard, but the way that it is that once it is full, it takes a while to empty, right? Like it waits for a time where it's where nothing is going on, and that can be a while, right? So what happened is that I made the first build, and the first build succeeded on Unity, right? And because it's a very heavy process, it filled like the VRAM a whole bunch, the VRAM file a whole bunch, and then when that process was over, the VRAM wasn't emptied immediately. And then because that build had an error and I had to make another build, I went in and tried to make another, but when I tried to do that, the VRAM was already pretty full, and yeah, it just killed my PC because it didn't have any more VRAM, and so that just kept happening over and over and over and over. And there's a command that you can put on the console to get it to you know, to get it to empty the VRAM, the swap file, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that was even the issue to begin with, because the error message was just built completely with a result of failed, and then a bunch of gobbledygook. It might as well have been hieroglyphics for how helpful that was, right? So yeah, I had to deal with that. The solution was really easy. After spending 4 hours, 4 fucking hours trying to do this shit over and over and over again, and my computer being held hostage, so I couldn't even play bilateral while I was waiting for it to fail. It just, the solution was, oh yeah, you gotta reset your PC before making a build. Now I know, and I also increased the space of my VRAM because, Jesus, like two gigs, way too small. I increased it to like 8. Just the same as the RAM. Did you know? Ay. So that's what I spent all of yesterday fucking doing. That's really the frustrating thing, is keeping my computer hostage so I couldn't even do something in the middle of it. Anyway. Right, here I am. Man, I haven't come to here in a while, have I? This is my game. Okay, so this to-do list is a bit obsolete because I had already done some stuff off stream, right? And we're gonna look at it now. Basically, the camera. You see, like, okay, what's important here is not the camera movement, like how the camera goes up when the player jumps, right? I mean, that's cool, but that's not what we're here for. What's interesting is the system that allows it to do that, because it works just by giving relative rotations, and then the camera checks for its target, checks for the spline, the curve that the target is attached to, and then places itself relative to that curve. So that allows us to treat this space as if it is 2D, but keeping the movement with these curves that exist, right? So that's very nice. Some more explicit movements, some more explicit ways for the camera should move might be a thing worth working on, but as of right now, that's good enough for testing. And just actually modifying the camera should be a lot easier, just because of how I made sure that the camera system was able to work with multiple things. So yeah, so that's gonna be nice. One thing that I'm noticing is that the skill of everything is jacked up way too high. And I kind of wonder... This is a more reasonable scale. Why didn't any of this go with... Oh, because these are all notes. This is just a normal note. Okay. So then... Okay, we're gonna make this not be... Just because it kind of bothers me how slow the camera moves in the editor, right? Like, this is an unreasonable speed. So let's take this, change the type of this node to a node 3D. Literally only so that it inherits the scale. 1. Yeah, and then this node to just a normal node. Ah, okay. So that's how that works. Okay, that's fine. We'll keep it a normal node then. This doesn't really matter. Does this break anything? The speed is probably gonna be way too high. Yeah. Yeah, but that's just editing a couple values here. So like, just dividing everything by 10 should work. And that's just an amount of frames, so that actually doesn't need to be divided by 10. Yeah, this is essentially the same. Okay, and now our scale is a lot more manageable. I don't know why I made everything so big in the first place. There was probably a reason that I forgot. Yeah, that's a reason. That's a more reasonable speed for moving the camera. Jesus, how was it working like that for so long? I guess I was just using focus and not noticing, huh? Okay, excellent. Okay, so that's the camera done, at least for now. So we can just pick this off of my to-do list. As for stuff with the player, for the player to interact with, that's a bit of a vague thing to be writing here. I wonder what exactly what I meant with this, because this is not telling me what I need to do. I don't really know. What did I mean by this? I wonder. Well, what else does this need to do? Well, I guess stuff for the player to grab, which would mean a system for the player to grab stuff, right? Yeah, the player has 3 buttons in this game. Jump, grab slash throw, and use slash punch, right? Whether they're grab or throw or use or punch depends on whether it has an object on their hands. So if the player has an object on their hands, then they're gonna use it. If they don't have anything, they punch. If the player has an object on their hand, they're gonna throw it. If they don't, they're gonna try to grab one. So the way that this works is, well, first of all, the player is gonna need a way to do that, right? So let's start with grabbing, right? That's the first thing. That's the thing that would seem to make sense. So how would I do that? I guess So yeah, okay. So we're gonna need to think of a few things, because the stuff that can be grabbed is gonna need to have a bunch of parameters, a bunch of things that we're gonna have to define for each one, right? Which is behavior when it's grabbed, behavior when attempted to use, and behavior when it's thrown. Those are the 3 things. Behavior when it's grabbed could be one of several that it could affect the player's physics immediately, right? As it is grabbed, the player becomes heavier, or or lighter, or it could either affect that or not in some way. Behavior when it's thrown means that when it's thrown, it could affect the player in some way, on top of whatever it does once it is an object that has been thrown, right? And then behavior when it is used means those are the special abilities that the player is going to have, so long as they're holding one of these, right? So those are the 3 things that we're going to need to think about. If I make, the first thing that I can think of is I should probably make a scene that is a generic grabbable that has a no on all 3 accounts. So no action when it's grabbed, no action when it's thrown, and no action when it is used. And so this is just the dummy that exists to test the system for grabbing things. So that should be the first thing that I do. Let's create this scene, man. Let's create a folder, grabbable. And inside of this, let's create a new folder, and this is dummy. Although, actually, let's not make it a folder until I'm sure that I'm going to need more than one. Let's just create a scene inside of this. So this is the dummy, and this should be a 3D scene. Right? Now let's put this dummy in here, just so that I can see how it looks in comparison to everything else. This is the dummy, it doesn't have anything, so it's not visible. Okay. So first of all, it's going to need something very similar. Just a sprite 3D, just like the player. Right? This is just so that we can see it, and this is obviously not the definitive sprite. We're gonna give it a gradient just for sake, but let's make a new gradient so that it doesn't share one with the players. So gradient texture 2D, and we're gonna make it like what's a color that screams to you grabbable item? Golden, right? Like a coin, like the coins in Mario. They're yellow, but like with this dark golden twinge. This. Oh yeah, nothing says I'm made of gold and you can grab me like this. Like this ugly ass gradient. Oh, what am I doing? Just make it green. There we go. That's nice. That looks like something you can grab somehow. Right. Okay. So also, I'm noticing a warning on the debugger. What the hell is this? Empty transition. Okay, so this seems to happen when the game starts. And this shouldn't happen. This is a warning that I pushed. So, I mean, this doesn't cause an error, but it's good to know whether when there's a function call that's unnecessary, because maybe our logic is wrong. And we can save ourselves some computation at the beginning of the level. Who's calling you? Do you have a stack trace? No, you don't, because you're not an error. Who calls begin transition? That's a good question. Who calls begin transition? Fucking hell. Begin transition is begin transition. It's not do transition. Oh, the camera transition there is a different thing. Okay, so begin transition is called. Oh, it's just public. It's just code from outside. Okay, so who's done it? Should be game camera. That should be the only one. Do you have a transitioner? A reference to the transition? Yep, you do. Okay. So this is. Okay, so yeah, do transition. Do transition is when on-camera transition ordered, and on-camera transition ordered is what is this called? Player. No, game camera. Okay. Let's see. So on-camera transition ordered is used when. No, this is the past number. Camera transition ordered is called when when the target handler decides that a transition has been ordered, and the transition is ordered when. Oh fuck! This is such a complicated mess. Ordered camera transition, right? So the. Player landed. Oh, so the player. Wait, the player does it? Wait, does the player start that? That doesn't make sense. No, the player doesn't do that. Then why does it look like it? Oh, whenever physics process is checking. Okay, it's checking, and if the player is on the floor. Wait. What the fuck? I don't know what the fuck that was about. Excuse me? Why is it ordering an empty transition? That doesn't really make sense to me. Well, okay, let's do error so that it gives me a stack trace, right? It doesn't give me a stack trace. Oh no, wait, it does. Okay, so the target handler is ordering a camera transition because it's checking if the player's on the floor of this frame. And the camera transition is taking whether the player landed. Yeah. Yeah, so it is because it's checking with the player, but okay, but it's checking these two, and these two are, they start at false. They start at false. Checking the player was on the floor, and if it wasn't, yeah, the player was not on the floor. It's in the air, and then the player decides, oh, now it's on the floor. It's checking on the next frame, and the next frame is, oh, okay, yeah, it's because this starts as null. That's not really helpful. No, but it's checking that. It's checking that, so it's not null. What the fuck? So it's not on the first frame then, it's when the player lands. So why does it take it as empty? Okay, let's see. Oh, is it because the ground camera rotation is the same as the air camera rotation? Or like it's already on ground camera position even though it starts on the air? In the air. Like if I change this to true. That's what it is. Yeah, no, that's absolutely what it is. Yeah, it's just, it's detecting an empty transition, but it's not actually an empty, or rather it is, because it's already at the position that it should be. So it's like, hey, you're telling me to transition, but I'm already there, dude. What are you doing? That's really what that warning is. Yeah, I said it there precisely to call out things like that. Push. What? Okay. Is it called push one then? Oh, no, I just misspoke. Push warning. There you go. Okay, so now we can actually close off. Now we can actually go to what we wanted to do. Okay, so we have this dummy, right? We have this dummy. And... ooh, I just realized I forgot. Grab some water. I need water if I'm gonna be yapping for 3 hours on stream today. Okay. I'm gonna... be right back. Like... back to this. Okay. So we have this dummy, and we should, actually, this is not a good name, is it? Let's call it the dummy grabbable. Oh, the grab dummy. Yeah, sure. Grab dummy. Because the whole idea is to be a thing that helps me test the grab system, right? And so this is going to have only one thing. We're going to need a script for this. On scripts, new folder, grabbable. We're gonna have, yeah, but this is not gonna be the grab dummy script. This is gonna be the grabbable script because we're going to have all the things that inherit from this later. So grabbable script. Yes, this is going to be that. So we're going to create a class name. Grabbable extends node 3D. Okay. So yeah. For now, this is all we need, right? So for now, it just needs to know that it's a thing that is grabbable. The idea is the player is going to have a thing and it's going to check, hey, is this a thing that can be grabbed? And the way that's going to do that is going to be checking, hey, is it grabbable? Also, for case, for consistency. Right? This also is going to need, in order for the player to actually know that it's within range of it, it's going to need to have like an area, like a collision of some type, right? In this case, it has a collision shaped 3D, but it's also of a type that is, I think, since every grabbable is going to have that collision, otherwise it doesn't really make sense. We're going to need also, I'm gonna write this, I'm doing it. Grabbable object, right? I'm gonna move this here a little bit. Okay. So yeah. So it doesn't make sense. The concept of grabbable doesn't really make sense unless it has an area. So let's change that at the base, right? Change type, and it's collision. But actually, what should it be? Because this is a character body. Should this be a character body? Physics bodies that are meant to be user-controlled. They are not affected by physics, but they affect other physics bodies in their path. They are mainly used to provide a high-level API to move objects with wall and slope detection, in addition to the general collision detection provided by Objects 3D Move and Collide. This makes it useful for highly configurable physics bodies that must move in specific ways and collide with the world, as is often the case with user-controlled characters. Don't require complex movement or collision detection, such as moving platforms. Animatable body 3D is simple to configure. Okay, this definitely still has to be a character body, which is a bit of a conflicted name, because it's not a character, but I still needed to move in highly specific ways that I want to set up through code, right? This is not gonna be like a physics-heavy sort of movement thing. I'm not gonna be assigning forces to these to make them move. Am I? Oh shit! I kind of am, aren't I? Wait. Oh shit. Can I change something on the go, during runtime? Can I change something from a character body to a... Well, no, but I could disable that. Okay, so if it's not a character body, then what should it be? Physics body. If it's not a character body, then it should be a physics body. So, physics. When should I be using a physics body? 3D collision object, physics body. You have static body, which is something that cannot be moved by forces. You have character body, which is a thing that's moved by script. You have a physical bone. But, oh, okay. You have a rigid body, which is moved by physics simulation. You must apply forces to it, and the physics simulation will calculate the resulting movement, rotation, react to collisions, and affect other physics bodies in its path. No, okay, you know what? No. It has to be a character body, because if it weren't, if it weren't a character body, then it would not be able to follow the spline, the path, right? I needed to follow the path, so it has to be a character body. Like, that's just a script heavy operation. And then we're going to copy the collision shape from here, because honestly, why not? But we're going to make it a new box shape, just so that they're not dependent. And it's the same box shape. It's just different internally, different data, you know. You can just stay as collision shape 3D. These are explainable. Okay. So we have this. Actually, this shouldn't be a box. This should be a sphere. A sphere makes more sense for this object. They needed to bounce around a little bit. You know, like I needed to actually. Do I need it to roll? Well, it doesn't matter because if it's a character body, then it's not gonna roll until unless I tell it to, right? It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference at this juncture. Okay, so then and this extends character body 3D because that's what all of them are going to be. And so this grabbable, has to be detected from the player, by the player. I mean, okay, so the player is going to need a way to detect that, right? So it's going to need a hand. I'm gonna make that as a separate scene just because it makes it easier to work with. So let's create a new scene, and this is hands, or rather, we're gonna call it player hands, right? Yes. So this player hands, same as before, these are going to be change type, character body. Character body 3D, right? There's going to be a sprite as well, but this is going to be a much smaller one, and also are going to need a collision shape. Like this. This sprite is going to be smaller, so first of all, we're gonna change these colors just to distinguish it from each other. Look at this, and then we're gonna make all of this small, so transform, I'm gonna make it 0.5 on all axes, right? And then the player is going to include those hands. So like, yeah, right? So I save this, and the player has these, which are like there. And the player is gonna have these hands like, for now, just right here. It really doesn't matter, right? And I'll know the exact positioning when I have the sprites later. But yeah. Oh, hold on, I'm realizing something. Yeah, because the idea is that the player is going to have a collider around it, an area around it, right? That is like its sphere of influence, right? So the hands, when you send the command, when you press the button, the hands are going to check in that area around them, and they're going to check, hey, what's in here? And if any of the things that are in here is a grabbable, the hands are going to go to it. The thing is, that area has to be around the player, not around the hands, because the hands have to be able to move freely, trail behind the player, so as to match the animation that we're going to be setting. So that animation cannot influence gameplay. That would be pretty bad design, right? Especially for something that's invisible, such as that area. So the player is going to need an area of influence for the hands, and the hands are going to need to check with that area. So we're going to need that area of influence to be something that the player that is queried. We also don't really need this anymore. This was just to be able to see where the player was more clearly in 3D space. Well, we're gonna keep it, but we're gonna call it remember to delete later. Yeah, okay, so these, yeah, so the player is going to need an area of influence for those hands. There's going to be, yeah, it's going to need a child node that is a area, right? Area 3D. Yeah, because it doesn't need to move anywhere. hands area, hands detection area, right? The detection area for the hands, and this is going to need inside of it a shape, collision shape, and this definitely has to be a sphere, and this sphere has to be like pretty big compared to the player. Something like, let's say, well, it has to be reasonable that the hands could grab it. So let's say 3, right? Sure, we can test it later to check what the actual size we want it to be, but this is what we're thinking. So yeah. Hands need 2 areas. They need a larger area where they're gonna try to go to, and the smaller area that it's going to be the limit of where they're allowed to travel to. But it may actually make more sense for the hands to travel to just hold a reference for the player and not be allowed to move further than it. That may still make more sense. Also, these hands should also have a sphere area, I think. I think it might be better if they do something like this. Where it's like permissive, right? So like 0.8. Like it's larger than it looks, but only a little bit, so that like you don't have near misses, because those always feel bad. Yeah. Yeah, right. And so collision shape. I'll call it shape because who cares? Yeah, so how do I handle this then after this? Yeah, so okay, so first of all, somebody needs to detect that the secondary button has been pressed, right? So do I have this in project settings? Do I have that set up already? Left, right, jump, force camera transition. Yeah, that was just... Oh, actually, what happens if I do that? Like, they do. Whoa, what's going on? Oh, why are you moving? Oh, you're being pushed by the hand. You're being pushed by your own hand. Oh, how is that going on? Yeah, you're not supposed to be able to detect this. Okay, so yeah, we have to make sure that that's not being detected. Okay, so collision. You do not exist on layer 1. You exist on layer 2. This layer is for player hands. The name, and this is what you exist on. And then this thing is only detecting. Everybody else should only be detecting layer 1. Okay, there we go. What happens if I press F1? Nothing happens. We can get rid of that. Of this thing. Of the whole thing, actually. Okay, so we need one more action. This is going to be grab, right? Lowercase for consistency, grab. And this is going to be... Okay, no. If this is A and D, then this should be... Okay. I mean, really what this should be, and let's add them right now, should be left, right, fuck, okay, left, right, Z, and X, right? have jump, you have grab. Yeah, it's a more natural control scheme. Yeah, okay. So we have that. What else? We also need yeah. What else do we need? Yeah, so this needs to react to that, right? So should the player react to that, or should the... Well, the player already has an input processor, so that it just makes sense that this will react to that. Yeah, we're gonna need to, because if we do it here, then something is going to be have to check this. It should be the hands. The hands check with the input processor, right? That's the purpose of the input processor, is to do stuff like that. So yeah. So yeah, you check the movement handler, and the movement handler checks the input processor, and the path is assigned on. Yeah. That's how it should work. Okay. So we're gonna add the variables to do this. So in the new variable, this is going to be the grab input of this predefined button state enum. We're going to do the function to check on grab, and so now this input processor is going to be constantly polling whether this grab button has been pressed, and it's going to be storing that in this variable. So now the player hands are looking for that variable on every frame, and they can react appropriately, right? Hold on, isn't this a bit silly? On action. Does input seriously not have a thing that reacts to what I'm thinking of? It's like, I'm pretty sure, okay, signals, right? Enumerations, cursor shape, property, emulate mouse from touch, emulate mouse from mouse mode, use community input, method descriptions, action press. Yeah, this simulates, that's a new mapping. Get accelerometer, get action flow strength, get action strength, get axis, get connected, get current, get gravity, get gyroscope, get joy axis, get joy info, get joy name, get joy vibration, get last mouse screen velocity, get last mouse velocity, magnetometer, mouse button mask, get vector, is it just press? Is it just released? Is it pressed? Is anything pressed? Is joy down? Is key label pressed? Is key pressed? Is physical key pressed? Parse input event. That gravity gyroscope commenter should ignore device. Start joy vibration. Oh, you can do vibration. That's nice. Stop joy vibration. Vibrate handheld. Warp. Yeah, there really isn't a function that reacts. So you really do have to pull it every time. That's weird. I sort of figured there would be like a callback or something that would react. Or maybe there is. I'm just not looking at it in the, not looking for it in the right place. That is possible. Well, okay, it doesn't matter. Then that means that I'm doing this the right way. So then, yeah, so with the input processor able to detect the grab input every frame and just polling for it, player hands should be able to detect that, right? So when that happens, the player hands are going to react. They are going to hold on. Let me check something. Because see, I'm thinking it's probably better architecture if I set it up so that the input processor is sending signals along with these buttons, right? Now that would be a pain in the ass to set up, and it doesn't really benefit me much if stuff already has a reference to the input processor. Yeah, no, it actually doesn't help me. Like maybe if I thought of that in the beginning, it would be helpful, but it's not really right now. Okay, so let's, yeah, we have the player hands here. So let's have it so that these player hands check. So these player hands are going to need a couple things. Player hands is going to need a script, and we're going to make that in the script folder. We're going to have player, we'll call it player hands. Yeah, that works. Create. This is going to be class name, player hands. I like having everything with class name so that I can reference it later. And so, the way that this works is yeah, these guys are going to need two references. One is to the input processor, so player input processor, which is going to be a type player input processor. So, and then when the player, we're going to tell it, hey, I need to tell them who their coworker is. So now what this is going to do with that input processor is it's going to be every single time every single frame, so it shouldn't be, it should be on physics up there, right? Physics process. Yeah, this happens on physics process, so this should happen on physics process too. So to create a function, physics process, right? And it's going to be checking the input processor. And if input processor point jump input equals true, not jump, grab. If we have to grab, then initiate grab and whatever that may mean, right? And right now we're going to just initiate it. So that's just a very simple functionality. Does that just work? No, it's trying to do it every frame. Actually, hold on, what? Yeah, it's just trying to do it every frame. Why is that? Oh, right, because this is not a bool. This is not a bool. This is an enum button state. How did the movement handler pull for it? All right, that one's a number. This one is, yeah, it just uses the enum. Okay. And the states are, oh right, I don't have it here. Right. I have a one for enums. Pressed, held, released, off. Yeah, I need to know whether it's being pressed. Okay. So yeah. So it needs to know whether it's being pressed. Hands. Yeah. If this equals enums point button state point press, right? And then we don't need those parentheses actually. I've been coding in C# for a bit, so, and when I press grab initiated, you see it pop up with the button. So I press, so the messaging works, right? So it's correctly checking that stuff. That's good. That's a start. So now we need to figure out what happens once the grab is initiated. To begin with, if it's in the middle of a grab, then we need to know that so that it doesn't try to start up another grab. So we're going to need to set up a state machine for this. Yeah, we're going to need to set up a state machine. Let's actually do that as a new thing. So we need a new child node. This is going to be just a normal node because this is going to be the state machine, right? If we add a script, and this script is, I'll call it hand state machine is what it should be. Script player and state machine, right? Player and state machine. Last name, player and state machine. And so this is just really easy. We are going to need an... Oh shit, are enums public? If I make an enum inside of this, is it going to be available outside? Okay, first of all, let's open up, let's figure out what states I need, right? So I need a normal idle state. I need grabbing. So when it's attempting a grab, when the hands are extending, then I need, do I need a returning from a grab state? I don't think that's a thing that I need. I think that should behave as an idle. I think that behavior should be part of the idle. Because then if you try to grab again while it's returning, you just start another grab. It doesn't really make a difference. I need a holding, right? When it's holding something. And alternatively, I also probably need a throwing, because I don't want you to be able to... I want there to be a slight cooldown between you choose the throw command and when you're able to grab again, right? To prevent sort of like cheesing where you grab something immediately, right? Like in Source engines where you just let go of something to jump on it and then grab it again, you know, like that sort of jank. That lets you float in the air, so we want to sort of avoid that. I think those are the 4 states that I want, and idle can go to grabbing. Grabbing can go either back to idle or to holding. Holding can go to throwing. Throwing goes back to idle. But then idle cannot go immediately to holding, it has to use grabbing in the middle. Grabbing cannot go to throwing, that just doesn't make sense. Holding cannot go back to idle because idle is just empty-handed. It cannot go back to grabbing either, it has to throw. And throw always goes back to idle. So yeah, that's good justification to use a state machine, I think. Okay. So, how do I do this? Let's just define an enum. How do I define an enum? I forget. I'm just gonna save it. And close all the others and then open the enums. Yeah, it's just like that. Okay. Enum and state, and we're going to call them just exactly that. So idle, grabbing, holding, throwing. And those are our 4 states. And then we decide how we allow these to sort of go from one to the other. So, yeah, and this is a state machine. It also needs to variable, current, and state. Did I? Yeah, like that. Current and state, and it is of type and state. And then, yeah, so we have that variable. So that is, this guy is going to be holding the current state of the hands, and then everybody who needs to know that just checks on this guy, right? And so whenever this needs to be changed, we call the function try change and state. And this is going to be, you're going to try to change it to a state, so target state, and that state is going to be one of the hand states that we have defined, right? And then comes the if, else, if, whatever. So if and state, if current hand state, if current hand state equals and state point idle, then this is going to return a boolean depending on whether this and state change was successful or not. So, well, right? If target state equals from idle, it can go to grabbing, right? So, and state grabbing. From idle, it cannot go to holding, it has to go through grabbing in between. It cannot go to throwing, it's not holding anything, there's nothing to throw. So, if this is the case, then change the state, and have state equals target state, and return true, otherwise return false, right? And else if current, and this will be better with a switch. What am I doing? How did you write switches in GDScript? Switch case GDScript. Google, please help me. It's called match. Yeah, sorry, just trying to learn how to use match. Wait, what? What the fuck's a pattern guard? I don't get it. Pattern guard is an optional condition that follows up the pattern list and allows you to make additional checks before choosing a match. Branch. Unlike a pattern guard can be an arbitrary expression. Only one branch can be executed per match. Once a branch is chosen, the rest are not checked. If you want to use the same pattern for multiple branches, or to prevent choosing a branch with too general a pattern, you can specify a pattern guard after the list of patterns with the when keyword. Okay, what? I don't get it. Okay. I get it now. Okay, it doesn't really help me though, but you know, now I know how to use it. Okay, so then match current and state, and then the first match is and state point idle, and then this is all of that, and it goes like this. Yeah, it's like that. Then second match is and state grabbing, right? And hand state grabbing if target state equals hold on, can I? Is there something that I can do? So I may be able to save up a bunch of lines if I do it this way, but I don't know if that's a thing. So I think I can just nest the matches, right? Like I know how to do what I want to do. I'm just mulling over whether there's a better way to do it, you know. Yeah, I think there's a better way to do it. Right, and then we have to create that function. So function is valid state transition from state, which is a type of hand state, and there are two state, which is a type of hand state. And now we do the match. Yeah, because that way I don't have to be copying and pasting this bit of code every time, right? Which would have been a pain. So it's just return true, return false. That's all it is, right? Match from state and state point idle when to state equals, yeah, from idle it can only go to grabbing. It cannot go to anything else. It cannot go to holding, that just, no, grabbing is the way that you go from idle to holding. It cannot go to throwing because there's nothing to throw. So to state equals and state grabbing return true. And this is idle all uppercase because it's an enum. And state idle. If it's any other type of idle, then return false, right? If it is, what are you looking about? And if it is hand state grabbing, grabbing can go back to idle. It can also go to holding if it finds something. It cannot go to throwing. Yeah, so when to, let's just take it for the easier one, to state equals hand state throwing. This is the one that it cannot go to. Throwing. Return false. If it is any other type of, if it is any other combination, return true. Right? If hand state equals instead, let's close this just so that I have a bit more space. If hand state equals holding, if hand state is holding, then holding cannot go back to grabbing. You have to throw. Cannot go back to idle. You have to throw. So yeah, when to state equals and state point throwing, return true. Otherwise, if it is hand state holding, return false. And then finally for throwing, and state point throwing always goes to idle, at least for a frame, right? So throwing when to state equals and state point idle, return true, otherwise return false. So hand state point throwing, return, and then it thinks that not all paths are returning a value, so we're going to push an error. If it gets to here, it shouldn't, so we're gonna push an error. No known and player and state machine no known state transition unknown state transition was given, and then return true or return false actually. Yeah, okay. So that makes sense. So that's our state machine. It can go like from certain states to other states, and we've just defined which ones. So like it can go from idle only to grabbing. From grabbing, it can go to anything except throwing. From holding, it can go only to throwing, and from throwing, it can go only to idle, right? That's just the way it goes. Okay, so the way the reason this is useful is because on this player hands node, now we can just sort of, we can decide whether or not we're going to initiate this grab depending on the state of the hands. This grab should really only be initiated when the hands are in the idle state. In any other state, it doesn't happen. And also, it should initiate a throw when we're in the holding state, right? And also, importantly, initiating the grab really only means that we tell the state machine to change to grab mode, and then the hands are going to change their behavior to whatever it is in grab mode, right? Oh, I think that might be useful. I think we should set up a signal, right? So this should have a signal that it sends whenever it changes to another state, right? That way, other things can be listening to that signal instead of just having to explicitly tie to the state machine, right? Yeah. Let's set that signal. How do I set up signals in Godot? I always forget. It's so easy and I always forget. There's a way that it can be done. Player, do you use a custom signal? No. I know that the path snapper does. No, it doesn't. Is the movement handler do it? Oh, damn it! I always forget. One of these shits uses a custom signal. And then I can check the code to see how I did it because I forget every time. Hands. Could it be... Game camera. Do you use a custom signal? Yes, you do. Okay, so how do you do it? You type this, you define the signal here, and then you just call it. Yes, then you just emit it. Okay, and you just give it the things there. Okay, that's what it is. Let's go to player hands, and it's the state machine. Yeah, so we need a new signal. Signal hand state changed. State changed to is of type hand state, right? And whenever you change state before returning, well, actually, this means that we don't need to return them, because the stuff that needs to react to this state change are just going to receive the signal. They're not going to need to be checking. They're just going to send the attempt and then receive a signal if it happens. And if they don't receive a signal, then they just do nothing, right? They don't have to be checking on. This doesn't have the signal to them this way, right? And the point of doing this is that things that didn't call this function may still need to react, right? That's the big advantage. For example, let's say an animator. If these hands are going to have an animation, then that animation needs to correspond to this. And, you know, they're not going to be sending a signal to do the graph. They're just going to be receiving the data, right? So then, yeah. So then you send the signal. Hand state changed. Target state, it will be. Well, actually, both of them are the same at this point. This emit. Right? Dope. That just works. So then. let's see. Right, so yeah, so this emits that signal, and then these hands are going to receive that signal. So they don't do this initiate grab, not like this anyway. If the button is pressed, then what you do is you tell the state machine, hey, I want to start a grab, can you do that for me, right? And then this just checks whether that's possible based on its current state, and then just does it, right? So then this is the function that we need to call. Does this need to know what the... Yeah, because this is the parent, so this should call down, right? Call down, signal up. That's what they always say. So so yeah, this needs a reference to that. So at export variable state machine of type player and state machine, and then you take that state machine and you take that state. When the button is pressed, you take that state machine and you tell it oh shit, hold on. You know what? Here's what we should do. Because I'm gonna know that the grab and the throw are mutually exclusive controls. But when I think about it, I don't actually have any reason to not allow the player to... Yeah, I don't actually have any reason to not allow the player to set those up as different controls, right? So let's allow for that. I think that's a decent feature. So, okay, so we have this grab, and we're going to create another action. This is going to be a throw, right? These are going to be just the same keys. By default, the same keys, and then you can change those to be different. What this allows me to do is have the throw and the grab just be two different processes, just that they both are triggered from the same key, right? And so if you want to separate them, you can, and that prevents you from like accidentally throwing something when you were like, you know what I mean? Like if your brain works better that way, I want to give you that option. And so I take this input processor, I'm going to need to create a new check for that. So this, and rather than being the grab input, this is the throw input, right? And then you're going to just this same line, but throw instead of grab, right? So throw, right? And now it's checking for throw. So now this and is going to be checking for the grab input, but also it's going to be checking for the throw input. Right? And so it goes to the state machine and tells it, hey, if we check the grab, try to change to the grab state. So and no, and yeah, it's layer and state machine and state grabbing. But if you detected the thing, then did this, then go try to make it change to the throw state, right? Throwing, right? And so when you press the key, if the key are the same, then it's going to try to do both. And it's going to be the state machine that is going to tell it, hey, you can only do one of those, and which one it is it depends on the current state that I am at. So if you're in idle, it's gonna lead you to the grab. If you're in holding, it's gonna lead you to the throw. If you're in throwing or grabbing, it's not gonna let you do either because you have to wait for those to finish, right? And the way that this guy is going to find out which one passed is by receiving a signal. So the state machine sends this signal, and this is going to know, the state changed. You know, if something else were to trigger that state change, then this would react as well, which is useful to us. Although I can't think of what else would trigger a state change, to be honest. Maybe a cutscene? Maybe a cutscene always changes the state to idle. Something like that. I don't know. Stretch. Yeah. So then. Thinking. Right, so the signal is received by the hand object itself, right? So then hey next. Yeah, actually let's just do it this way. So just yeah, so actually let's do it this way. Just a grab input let that be the first thing that you do. Yeah, we're gonna create a new function just to keep this tidy. So we're gonna have a function here that is grab input, right? And this is going to be doing all this, right? So the physics process, the first thing that it does is just grab the input from the input processor, right? So grab input, right, and do all of this, and then it's going to perform its other functions, right? And its other functions are going to be just acting depending on what state the state machine is at. And for that, I need the state machine to have a function that will return the hand state. Or I could just get the current hand state, just read it like that. Yeah, why not, honestly? Do I really need a function? It's not like these things are not public by default. They're always public. Every variable is public, which pleases me because it makes stupid people angry. It makes stupid people who don't know how to code angry, and that's great. That's my favorite thing. There's nothing I love more than making a dumbass who's too full of himself fucking mad. Oh shit. Okay, so So. Hold on, give me a second. I gotta check something else. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. Right. So then these hands are just sort of reacting, right? So the player, yeah, I'm just realizing the player is going to, since the hands are going to be able to move independently of the player is going to need a home point for the hands, just an anchor. So the hands follow this anchor when they need to, but otherwise go wherever, right? So then, yeah, because if I just allow these to move, then they're gonna just move and they're gonna like, move completely out of place. So then, yeah. So I need an anchor point. That's something I need. Let's just that one's easy. I just need a node that can hold a position, right? So just hands anchor point, right? This goes here. It has to be external to the hands because if it's internal to the hands, they're gonna move along with it. Actually, isn't there a node that is specifically for shit like this? Change type. I think there is. It's something like 3D layer or something like that. It's spring bone. If I knew the name, I could just find it. Skeleton shape cast remote transfer. What is a spring arm? Skeleton shape cast remote transform raycast, like a marker, right? Navigation region. Oh, this is for pathfinding, but it's also experimental, so I'm no way in hell I'm using it. Navigation obstacle, navigation link, marker. Yeah, this is exactly what I want. Yeah, it's just a normal Node 3D, but it shows me this little doodad so that I can place it right away. So that I can see it, you know, in the scene without having to fucking guess. Because a Node 2D usually is invisible because it has no functionality by default. Right, so then these hands, what they're doing is when they're in idle mode, then they're going to go to that spot every frame, right? So let's just for testing make the hands spawn like all the way over here, right? And now we're going to program that behavior. So the hands are going to have a they're going to need to know who that guy is. So export variable anchor point, and the idea is that when the player is moving, we can animate the anchor point and just know that the hands will follow it, right? Anchor point node 3D. I mean, actually, a marker 3D. Sure, it can be a type marker. We can decide that it's going to be a marker. There's no reason it shouldn't be a marker. And then we're going to check, but that behavior is only going to happen when the hand is in idle mode. So match, we're going to need to match state machine current hand state, and then if that current hand state is of the types that you find in player hand state machine, the hand state type, the one which is idle, then I want you to run the function idle behavior, right? Otherwise, don't bother. We're going to have different functions for all the other behaviors, but this is the idle behavior in the physics process. I'm not sure you probably know the delta as well. It's physics process, so it's going to be always the same number, but it's good to use it rather than just leave it be. And then we have to program that. So, oh, hold on. This, I'm just realizing, this grab input is not a good name. I meant it in the sense that you are grabbing the input from the input processor, but I'm realizing that because these are the hands and they do a thing that is called grabbing, it gets confusing. So we're going to do query input instead. That's a less ambiguous word. Because I'm going to get confused 2 months down the line if I see that and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Why is the grab input processing throw input as well? Yeah, so the idle behavior. So now we have to function. We have to code the idle behavior, right? Idle behavior with the delta, which is a type of float. And so what do you do in idle behavior? It's really simple. The only thing you do is you move yourself to that anchor point with a certain lerp strength, because lerps are awesome and they make things look nice. So transform point position equals anchor point global position, but it's going to be how do you do a lerp in GD script? Vector 3 lerp Unity in GD script. I forgot to put that into my search query. Query. That's a nice word. I like that word. Query. You don't get to use that word very often in your day-to-day, do you? Query. Ooh, it sounds so nice and refined. But the problem is now I've said it too many times and it just sounds weird now. Query. Sounds like sounds like something that you'd say to make a little twink feel bad. It's just a little query. Oh man, I wish I was a little query, to be honest. How do you do a lerp in GD script, please? Yes, I know what an interpolation is. You don't have to explain it to me. Just give me the fucking function. Just give me vector interpolation. Vector 3-point lerp. Okay, how do I use it? Yeah, okay. Please do not invent spins on slurs. Okay, hold on. Queer is not a slur anymore. And also, I'll do whatever I want. To be honest. Considering I'm taking like one of them, I feel like I should. Well, what's the... I feel like I should be able to. I should be allowed. I'm sorry, I thought this was America. We have a thing called freedom here. I don't know if you've heard about it. I'm not even in America. What the fuck am I talking about? Yeah, how do I do a lerp? Yeah, okay, so you just take the vector. So, it has to be the global position, and actually this should be the global position as well. The global position. So transform point global position point lerp, and it's going to be lerping to the anchor point global position. They have to be global because otherwise they're going to use a local one. You live in Chile. It's America. It's South America. It's South America. It's still part of America. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Nobody fucking says that. Dumbasses in Spanish say that, but that's because they don't know, like, it fucking... Nobody says that. That's the thing some people say, but only people who speak other languages. In English, everybody's perfectly happy to allow that America is America, you know? Everywhere else, though, like in Spanish, we don't call it, I mean, we don't call it America, we call it the United States. And I know that in English they call it the United States, but what I mean is that we only call it the United States, right? Estados Unidos, like there's not like America one, you know? Like the actual, what do you call the names that nationalities get? Like French for France, right? Or Norwegian for Norway. Those words have a name and I always forget. But anyway, the one for America, for American in Spanish is just estadounidense, which is it's from Estados Unidos, right? The closest best translation that I can give you is that the actual translation is it means American, right? But like the closest way that I can explain what it is like if you called somebody a United Statesian, which yes sounds really weird, but like, you know, we're used to saying it and it doesn't sound weird in Spanish. Because of that, because we're used to saying it, because all words are made up, right? Oh, fuck out, fucking hell! I'm talking about linguistics again. I always go into this. I've always. This is like one of those things that I'm like into, I guess. I could have been a linguist. Instead, I decided to make video games. I'm fucking starved. Anchor point global position. It's the global position I'm looking for. Global position. And the lerp factor should be... Well, that's a good question. What should be the lerp factor? Well, it should be delta times something. Let's have it just as a parameter that we can change so that I can decide what looks good. Maybe we can even animate the parameter, and that would make it so that certain transitions are faster than others. At export bar lerp string. And it's a type float. Delta times lerp string. Multiplying it by delta just makes it so that it's relative to seconds. Right. Wait, really? You don't have a global position parameter? What are you talking about? Of course you do. Really? You don't? Doesn't make sense. Transform 3D. Transform 3D. Operator. These are methods. Constructors. No. Properties. Basis. Origin. What the fuck do you mean basis and origin? Oh, it's because of math. For fuck's sake. Okay, is there a function to get the position? Yes, it is. It's translated. No, it's not. That's not what it is. Affine inverse. Interpolate with inverse. Wait, what am I talking about? No. The transform is not a component within this. It is a parameter. I can just... Local position or translation of this node relative to the parent. This is equivalent to transform point origin. Transform point origin. Right, but I'm looking for the global one. How do I get the global? This is different than for 2D. Why is it different? Okay, so how do I get the global position? GD script. How do I get the global position of a transform 3D? Global transform. Oh, you get the global transform. Okay, it's not a transform. It's not a global position within the transform. It's a global transform. That makes sense. It's basically just because of math. Global Because like I'm sure this internally makes it so much nicer to code. Global. Why did I write global position again? Global transform, and from there just a position. And then this is just the same. Which should be a vector 3, right? There's no way it isn't. The fuck are you talking about? Oh, it's origin, right? That's what it's called. Because technically, transforms and matrices can be used for other things than just positions, right? It's just that that's the most useful thing that they can do. Okay, so that should make it so that when I set this number to something that isn't... Okay, so first of all, okay. You need to know who the state machine is, which is this guy, and you need to know who the anchor point is, which is going to be within player. It's going to be this guy. And I save this. Yep, there you go. Okay. And then we're going to need to set the lerp strength. Well, let's set it to 1 and see what that looks like, right? Yeah, 1 is obviously way too slow. Let's set it to like, I don't know, 20. Yeah, just that was immediate. So let's say 10. Let's say 5. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. So that just works. That's like I think so. I can change this value through an animator within the player because it's exposed right here. So I can just change it during runtime to make it so that things go faster or slower whenever I need them to, right? If I want like a transition to make it so that that speed is very slow because the player is carrying something or whatever, I don't know, I can just change that value. That'll work. Okay. That was actually, yeah. So, okay, let's put this back where it should be, somewhere like here. I'm definitely gonna need to make this into part of a tool script so that it sticks to this even during the editor, because that's gonna make making animations a lot easier. But that's gonna be for later. Yeah. I tell you what, I've been doing this for about 2 hours. I think it's fair to leave it here for now and go to something else. Because I did want to play a game after this, and I've been neglecting Blasphemous. I have it installed still, I just haven't played in a while. This is good progress, and we have a better idea of what we want to do later. So yeah, I'm gonna be right back, and then I'm gonna play Blasphemous. So give me just 1 second. Yeah. Okay, so be right back. Just gonna have some water, do some stuff, and then I'm gonna play a game, and hopefully I won't crash. Because Blasphemous had a way to do that, and I think it's because of the VRAM issue. So yeah, we'll see. See you soon.